All right, Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure to have you. So for those of you who have not met Michael Levin yet, he is one of the most established ghostwriters in the nation. He's a New York Times best-selling author, and he's co-written or written or ghostwritten more than 100 books, of which 11 are national bestsellers. He's also made contributions to the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Politico, the Los Angeles Times, the Boston Globe, Jerusalem Post, Writer's Digest, CBS News, and many, many more. Michael's had experience to teach writing classes at the University of California, Los Angeles, and New York University, and he even appeared on ABC's Shark Tank in 2012. So it's quite a resume.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've been busy.
Absolutely. So it's great to have you here. So, let's get started. Tell us about your background, how you got started as an author.
Oh my gosh, all I ever wanted to do was write books from the time I was a little kid, and my dad read Ask Mr. Bear or Winnie the Pooh to me when I was, 3, 4, 5 years old. And then when I was in elementary school, they had a film strip, which is like YouTube, but not. And on the film strip, it showed a writer examining the proofs of his book, an author. And I said, that's it. That's what I want to be when I grow up. And I'm living the dream. I'm a lawyer by training, didn't want to be a lawyer. And eventually, just started. The key to writing is just sitting down and doing it. There's no entrance exam. It just requires putting you behind in a chair. And that's how I got started.
That's awesome. So tell us about that first book. What was that experience like?
Oh, gosh. I had a kind of religious conversion experience when I was about 20 or 21. And my family, nothing crazy, but my family thought I had gone crazy. So just before that, I had seen that one of my college professors, one of the professors at my college, had written a book when he was about 24 years old. So I realized you didn't have to be, old to write a book. And I thought, I'm going to write a book which will explain to my family and to families of other people who did what I did that I'm not crazy. And then neither are those people. So that was basically it. And I would sit there. I was living in Marblehead, Massachusetts, and I was living near an 18th century graveyard. So at night, I would go there and with a glass of ouzo, and I would just think about what I would write in the morning. And then in the morning, I'd get up and write 2 or 3 pages, longhand. And then I'd go off to work. I was at a law firm, a summer associate. And then I'd come home that night and think and write a few more pages, did that 6 days a week, put a manuscript together, got it typed, and sent it off to 30 publishers. 28 rejected it immediately. 1 expressed some interest, and the 30th bought it. And the 30th was the one I wasn't going to send it to in the first place. So, the message is, if you're writing about religion, don't play God.
Absolutely. You got to just keep at it, right? Keep being persistent. That's great. So, if you've written over 100 books now, that's like, for some people, maybe aspiring authors just listening, that sounds like, how could I possibly do that? How could I achieve something like that? But maybe you can take us into, your writing process and how you've become so productive over the years.
Sure. Just, to be clear, I've done personally 30, 40, 50 books in my own, and then books that I've co-written or ghostwritten with my clients. My company has now done, that number is actually somewhat out of date. We've done over 270 books. I've planned pretty much all of them. I've probably planned 400, 500, 600 books for clients and friends, whatnot, over my career. But the real key to writing successfully is low quotas. If you tell yourself, well, Hemingway wrote 30,000 words, so I better write 10,000 words, whatever crazy number, you're setting yourself up for failure. I always told my students at UCLA or NYU or wherever, low quotas, specifically 2 rotten, stinking, double-spaced pages a day. Because, look, you're even smiling as I say it. And if you can do 2 rotten, double-spaced pages, you can probably knock that out in 20 minutes, half an hour. And here's the secret. You cannot write better than you can write, and you cannot write worse than you can write. So as soon as you stop striving for quality and just striving for commitment and consistency, 2 rotten, stinking pages a day, you're going to keep moving forward. And if you add it up, that's 10 a week. That's probably, and you'll probably do more than that. So it's probably 15 a week. That's about 60 a month. You'll have a first draft done in 4 months if all you did was 2 rotten, stinking pages a day. So don't judge what you wrote. Don't look back. Just get it done. And then get somebody else to look at it once the draft is done. But the main thing is move forward every day, even if you don't feel like it. Your writing will be just as good whether you had a fight with your girlfriend or your husband or your whoever. It'll be just as good whether you got 2 hours sleep or 8 hours sleep, whether you're clear-headed or hungover. It'll be exactly the same quality. So just get it done, little a day.
That's awesome. That's great advice. And I totally agree with that. I mean, for me, I put it down to minutes, like, 5 minutes or 15 minutes to start that habit of every day consistently getting in the habit of producing content and writing. And then, if you're in the flow and you're just loving it, you can go for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. But you don't feel like you have to every single day,
Right.
work hours and hours and hours, because like you said, you can get 2 pages done a day in a very short period of time.
That's it. Yeah. Main thing is don't put pressure on yourself. You're going to have to overcome enough negativity and fear and self-doubt anyway. So why make the burden even harder?
Absolutely. That's great advice. That's awesome. So let's talk about marketing a little bit now, because you've had so many books now, worked with so many clients. How do you use books as marketing tools? Especially today with the internet and social media and everything.
Sure. What's different about books today is that people's attention spans are shorter than ever. I just heard recently that a human being has an attention span of 7 seconds. A goldfish has an attention span of 8 seconds, which means that people are probably not even paying attention to me anymore on this interview. But since people's attention spans are short, ironically, there's even more respect than ever for anyone who can create a book, whether they write it themselves or use someone like my company, Business Ghost. So if you're able to have a book out there, you are commanding respect just because you're living in a world where people don't have the patience to read a book, let alone write their own. So that's the first thing. It's almost as though you're a tribal priest hundreds of years ago, where literacy was scarce. All of a sudden, people see you as a thought leader, and it's not because the book has the imprimatur of a major publisher on it. People don't know the names of many of the publishers, and they don't recognize the names of the imprints or sub-brand names that the major publishers use. So I hear over and over again, well, in my industry, if I don't have the credibility of a major publisher, and I always want to say to those people, which is real, Riverhead Press or Riverside Press? Which is real, Portfolio or Artists? You could just play this game forever. And most people would be like, I don't know. Well, that's the point. So just as long as you have a book out there, you're instantly a thought leader. So that's where it begins.
That's a great point. I absolutely totally agree with that. No one asks when they go to buy a book at the bookstore, give me the new Random House or give me the new Macmillan. They don't care. They want to know, they want to know the Michael Levin. They want to know the author. They want to connect with the author. They don't
even care about Michael Levin, to be honest. My mother does, but my kids, I hope. But beyond that, what people really care about with the book is this going to solve my problem? And to their shame, the publishers have not made their brands part of the buying decision for book readers. If I think about cars for a moment, or if your viewers think about cars, they know the difference between a Bentley and a Kia instantly. But the thing is that what does Random House as a brand stand for? What does HarperCollins stand for? What does Farrar Straus stand for? If you're in the publishing industry, you might have a few distinctions among those names, but the average person doesn't know because publishers failed to create brands around, and they could have done it. They've been around for decades or a century or longer. So as a result, all people really care about is, have I heard of the author? Probably not. But what's this book about? Will it solve my problem? The title gets them excited. The subtitle explains the unique selling proposition or the value proposition of the book. Now they know what it's about, what it's going to do for them. Then they flip it over to look at the third-party endorsements, and they want to see that people they respect or people with jobs they respect are endorsing the book. Then they're going to look at the table of contents. Does this look entertaining and fun, or is it going to be a penance and a misery to read? And once they've got all that figured out, at that point they're going to say, you know something, this is a book I want to read. And that's where it's going to, and it'll go from there very, very, very quickly. So, the author's name, secondary. The publisher's name, immaterial. What matters is the author, is the topic of the book, and the question of, will this solve the problem for the reader? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Totally agree with that. Absolutely. So how do you go through that process when you're planning out a book? Let's say, a client comes to you with a book idea. how do you go through that process to make sure that you're communicating to the reader, you're building the brand for the book, that it actually, proves to the reader right away that this is going to solve their problem?
That's a great question. And what we do is, when I'm planning a book, I start off with three questions. And the first is, who is the specific niche audience for the book? The reality is that today there's no such thing as a mass market for pretty much anything. 2/3 of America doesn't watch the Super Bowl. 5/6 don't watch the Academy Awards. I know these statistics sound great because I just made them up, but they're roughly true. So if the Super Bowl and the Oscars don't have mass market audiences today, what does? Pretty much no book does. So as a result, I mean really all the way. As a result, I apologize. As a result, we've got a situation where authors have to identify the specific niche they're trying to address with a book. And that may be a niche of 50,000, it may be a niche of 50 million, but the thing is that it's a niche. And so the question is, who are you trying to sell to? Whether you're selling ideas or objects or consulting or financial services or medical care or body, mind, spirit, or just plain getting people to think differently about a topic that's important to you. So the first question when you're planning a book is, who is my specific niche audience? Next question, what step do I want them to take? What next step do I want them to take as a result of reading a book, hearing about a book, seeing me on TV, talking about the book if I'm the author, seeing it discussed online? What is it that I want them to do? Because the purpose of a book is to make people in a niche audience take a next step. What next step do you want them to take? And then the third and final question is, how do I break that? I should say, what body of knowledge is in the author's head that if people knew they knew it, people in that niche audience knew they knew it, they would take that next step with them? What would that be? And chances are, anybody who's been active in a field for a period of years could write multiple books about any given topic. So the question is, which topic are they going to write about? And the answer is the book that is going to be most strategically useful at that moment. And that means that they first, before they write a word or even write a table of contents, they've got to ask, who's going to read this thing? And then what do I want them to do once they've read it or heard of it? And then what body of knowledge is in my head that would cause them to take that next step with me if they knew that I knew what I know? And then from there, you can create the table of contents. I typically do that with my clients in about an hour, and that's where it starts.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense?
That's awesome.
Sure.
That's awesome. So I'm wondering if we can walk this process even a little bit in more detail, because, I think one of the big mistakes a lot of authors make when they're first starting out is that they don't get focused on that niche, like you said.
Right.
But even then, like your number two is like, what is the next step you want them to take? I think a lot of authors don't do that either. So can you be a little bit more specific and walk us through, like, how do you actually, plan the niche? Like, how specific do you get with your niche, first of all?
Well, typically, my clients know what it is. They know their niche. They know that they let's take a financial advisor, for example. They typically go by age of their prospective clients and financial status. So you might have an advisor who works with people who are within 3 years of retirement and have a minimum investable assets of $1 million. Okay, they already know that. The thing is that sometimes they want to change and they want to say, I want to use this book as an opportunity to rebrand myself as somebody who works with people with a minimum of $2.5 million. So the book becomes the publicizable moment about how they grow from one level to the next. Now, I did a book with Chris Myers of Fox Sports, and it was called NASCAR Nation. There are 50 million NASCAR fans in the United States. It's still a niche audience. The niche audience consists of people who like NASCAR and would be willing to buy a book about it. That's not all 50 million, but it's a lot of them. So that's why we did that book for that audience. So a niche could be as small as, the 5,000 people within 50 miles of your house who could hire you to do a specific service, or it could be 50 million people. It could be a huge niche. The Kardashians appeal to a niche audience. They might have 20 million people who follow them. But the thing is that 290 million don't, but they're appealing to a niche. So Your niche will make you rich, but only if you define it and then sell directly into it and write directly for that niche audience.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely, totally agreed. Totally agreed. So, I think one mistake a lot of authors make, just starting out, is that they're not really sure if their niche is even, like you said, is going to make you rich, is it even going to be profitable? How do you know going in? How do you do your market research to make sure that, especially if you have a smaller niche, that it's actually going to be worth your time and that people are actually going to buy it?
Well, when I'm talking to prospects, I have a company called Business Ghost, and that's what we've been discussing. We ghostwrite books for people who have a positive message and a business purpose or some other important social purpose. So when I'm speaking to them, the first thing I'm probing for is, why do they want a book? What's the business purpose or other purpose behind their book? Are they going to be able to monetize or make money from it in a reasonable amount of time? And if I don't hear a serious business purpose or a serious purpose, they've got ideas about spirituality, they've got ideas about body, mind, spirit, great. As long as they've got really important ideas that they want to get out there and an end game, and we're able to define success, I'll do the book. If I don't hear that, I won't. And I say to them, look, I'm really trying to figure out, is this sensible for us to do? Because if it's not, then 8 months from now, you're going to be coming after me saying, why did you talk me into this? And I'm going to be saying, yeah, but you called me. So, what are we talking about here? So my goal is to make sure that the client understands his or her purpose for doing a book. And if they're vague or uncertain, they're probably not ready to do a book. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Definitely makes sense. So let's talk about number 2 then, is that taking the next step. So can you give us an example of what that next step might be for, a typical client, typical author, and how you go about, planning that into the process as you're writing the book?
Sure. The typical thing that we want people to do is pick up the phone, call the author, and hire the author. The author might be offering financial services, consulting services. It might be an entrepreneur who's using the book to capture the culture of the company she's created. And the idea is that new hires or customers or vendors or regulators will be able to read the book and understand exactly what this company stands for. So we're typically trying to make the phone ring and get people to say, I want to hire you, I want to work for you, I want to marry you, whatever. I want to be, I'm influenced by your ideas, I buy into what you're saying, and I want you to work with me. Just today I was working on a book for a gentleman who has a real estate firm, and he's trying to bring on new high-level, highly successful realtors to work in his company. So his book is about differentiating himself from the companies that they're working for and outlining the benefits that they'll receive by coming to work for or with his group instead of staying where they are. So that's what that book explains. And the next step with that book is that a high-level realtor will pre-qualify himself or herself and say, yes, I do the 24 to 40 transactions a year they're looking for. I'm big enough now. I'm struggling. I'd like to be doing 80 or 100 transactions, and these are the people who can get me there. And people read the book, and they're doing 5 or 10 transactions a year, are going to say, no, I'm not right. So one of the things we want a book to do is help people learn more, but we also want to help them not pick up the phone and call and be a distraction if they're not really in the sweet spot of the author, and the author really cannot work with them or help them.
Gotcha. Totally makes sense. So you really want to get focused, like you said, on your niche.
Yeah.
But, and specifically, like, how does those call to actions work inside the book? I mean, how do you actually get people to take action after reading the book? What does the process look like? How do you lay it all out?
Well, the way you get a successful call to action in a book is that you're very, very generous with information throughout the first 10 or 12 chapters, and then the last chapter is your call to action chapter. If you are generous with information, you will have generated a conversation between yourself and the reader, so that the reader will already be talking back to the book and talking to you. So, because they're so deeply engaged. If the book is strictly an advertisement and explaining how great the person is, that's going to be an unsuccessful book. People are going to be bored with it. It's just not going to fly, and people are going to be upset because it was an advertisement disguised as a book. People understand that authors use books as marketing tools, and they respect that as long as the author really is generous with information, and you provide enough information in the book so that the reader could go out there and do whatever it is you want them to do without you. If they can do what you do without them, they're going to say, wow, I could do this, but wouldn't it be better if I just hire the author right now? And that's why they call. So since they've already got this conversation going with you, I like to call the call to action chapter something like, should we continue the conversation? ? And that chapter is typically about half the size of the previous chapters, and it explains these things. First, who is in the sweet spot of the author? So the author says, I like to work with people who are XYZ, and then lays out the qualifications for being in the world or the orbit of that author. Next, these are the services I provide to that niche market. This is what I can do for you. And you lay out all the different options. Next, this is what you'll expect to have happen. This is what you can expect to have happen when you pick up the phone and call us or email us or get in contact with us. This is our intake process. This is our introductory offer, whatever. What do they expect? So there are no surprises. And then here's how to reach us. So it's not just a box with an 800 number and an email address. It's actually a well thought out description of whom you serve, how you serve them, what your sweet spot is, and who you really want calling, what they can expect, and then how to get in touch. For me, that's a successful call to action.
That's awesome. So only in that chapter then is where you're going to have your contact information for the author and so forth, or are there going to be other things throughout the book? Like, do you guys, drive people to the website to download, questionnaires and free reports and things like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can be driving people to the website throughout the book, and that's a great thing to do, and give them free stuff when they get there. But the main thing is keep them fascinated, and keep giving them free information, great information throughout the book. And then in the chapters prior to, in the information chapters prior to the call to action, don't get salesy. What you do is you talk about how you've solved problems for other people, and get them jealous because they've got that same problem and they wish they had you. If only that you're trying to get, if only I could get the author, but he's so important, she's so busy. How could I possibly, little me? That's what you want them thinking. You want them thinking, how do I get the author into my life? What does the author have? And then also Emerson has a law called the law of compensation, which means that if you create value for people, they have a subconscious desire to repay you. So let them, at the end of the book, let them know what they can get from you. Maybe it's a webinar series, maybe it's a CD series, I don't know, whatever, maybe it's another book, whatever it is, let them know that other things are available. Don't keep it a secret, but don't start selling until the end. You tell all the way through and then you sell in the last chapter.
Absolutely, that's great advice. And I totally agree with that. I mean, like you said, the law of compensation, adding as much value as possible. People will just want to reward you naturally. It's just the natural human response. It's like, when you give someone a gift, they just want to reciprocate. They want to give it back. So, when you write the best book you possibly can, as much value as you possibly can, the reader's just going to naturally love you and talk about you and share your book through word of mouth. And, the ones who can afford it and want to do it will hire you as well.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And then the people who cannot afford to hire you or aren't right for you, they're also going to benefit from the book, and you're creating positive karma. It's going to come from somewhere, not directly from them. It'll come indirectly, but it'll come. I always say that when you write a book, magic happens. The one thing you cannot predict is from which direction the magic will come, but it will come.
Absolutely, totally agreed. So I want you to imagine now that, let's just say like I was a new potential client for your company, and we've got this great book. We've gone through the whole process. We've written the book, and now it's time to publish it. What advice would you give me on publishing? Would you say, go the traditional route, self-publish? What would that conversation look like?
Okay, sure. Well, the first thing we would have determined at the beginning of the process was, should you go to New York and try to get a deal with one of the big 5 major publishers, or perhaps with one of the smaller traditional publishers around the country, because they're not all in New York. And the starting point for New York is basically, are you famous? Are you already doing 50 keynotes a year? Do you already have 150,000 people following you on Twitter? Do you already have, a gazillion Facebook friends? Are you already on the Today Show? The major publishers are very firm about the fact that they're not there to help you build your brand. Their attitude is, you come to us after you've already built a brand, and then we'll do business. So if a person doesn't have a platform, it's going to be really tough sledding. I was on a call yesterday with a literary agent and a potential author, a client of mine, and we had written up a 3-4 page summary of his book, and the agent read it, and she loved it, and she said, yeah, this is great. You're terrific. This will be a great book. He said, do you think we can sell it to New York? She said, probably not. You're not famous. You could spend 6 months and go build your brand, or you might be better off to just go ahead and try a smaller publisher that isn't going to require such a big brand already, because they're going to work with you, or do it yourself right now. Do it independently. So once we made that determination, are you famous enough to go to New York? Yes. Okay, I'm working right now. Another client is one of the top people on Shark Tank. I cannot say his name, but everybody knows it. He's sort of a household word in the entrepreneurial world. And he's a phenomenally successful human being in a very young age. He's going to get a deal with New York. He's going to get a big deal as soon as he finishes his reading the draft of the proposal. He's too busy to do it. I keep trying to slap him over the head through email, but so far without success. So that somebody like that goes to New York. And the thing is that it's not as though going to New York is better. It's going to take an extra year and a half before your book comes out. They're paying small advances to all but rock stars. You read about the $8 million advances to Hillary Clinton or Amy Schumer, but the rest of is that the comedian's name? Amy Schumer?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Or the people from The Office, but Mindy Kaling. But everybody else is getting $5,000 or zero advances. So it's not like they're even paying you that much money up front. Also, they're not going to lift a finger in most cases to do the marketing on your book. That's still going to be on you, the author. So you have to say, what exactly am I getting? Am I getting credibility? Well, yeah, except you can't put credibility on a bank deposit slip. So if you independently publish, I think the virtues are enormous. First of all, the stigma is all but disappeared. People just don't care. All they care about is you wrote a book. They don't care who published it. They don't care about the ins and outs of the publishing industry, as we discussed. They're just impressed that you did it. Next, the book comes out immediately. We've done books at Business Ghost. We did one in 6 weeks for Doug and Jackie Christie, NBA star and his wife. We did one that was published by Reader's Digest Press. The book was written in a day and a half. I did another one for a top realtor trainer, and he had a conference coming up. He needed the book in 6 weeks. He had his book written in 1 week and published 4 weeks later and available for sale at his conference. So, typically we like a little longer. We like 4 or 5 months if we can get it. We can get it done in a matter of a month or two or less if you need it done that quickly. And then the book is out there working for you. It's out there making money for you. So I don't think there's anything wrong with independent publishing. Quite the contrary. Your book would come up on Amazon just the same way John Grisham's book does, or any top business author. So there's no differentiation. Amazon creates a level playing field between little guys and the major publishers. That's part of why the major publishers hate it. So, in this era where you can get your book up so quickly and available for sale so easily online, why would you want to wait a year and a half extra just for the imprimatur of a New York house?
Absolutely, totally agreed. And the cool thing is nowadays, you can do, and since it takes so long to get traditionally published anyways, you could do 1 or 2 or more books and use both routes.
Yeah, I'm in a coaching program called Strategic Coach. And the head of that group, Dan Sullivan, who is my coach, publishes a book a quarter. Every time you come quarterly for seminars. Every time you come, he's got a new book. They're not big, but they're real books. They count. They're probably 60, 70 pages. Today, books can be much shorter than in the past. People wouldn't have thought of a 70-page book as a book 20 years ago. As attention spans have shrunk, so have books. So you can definitely get multiple books out there in the same amount of time. The other thing I want your viewers to consider is calling your book not a book, but a manual. If you call a book, you can only charge what other books are charging. Say, $6 for an ebook or $9.99 or 15 or 20 or 25 for a hardcover. If you're calling it a manual, you can charge for the book in relation to the value it provides the reader. And that means that if you're teaching somebody how to pass an exam, or you're teaching somebody how to get a new client or something like that, you can charge $250, $300 on Amazon for an 80-page download. And if you think I'm not telling the truth, type in the word manual into Amazon, see what kinds of books come up, and you'll find that people are getting $250, $300, $500 for an 80-page guide that all it does is teach them a very important skill that they can monetize right away. And it doesn't have to be long, but because it's a manual, if you hear that something's a manual, it sounds like a textbook. You expect to pay more for it. So that's just something else to consider.
Absolutely. Great advice. So, one more thing before we go, I want to talk about, your experience in the industry over the past, decades that you've been in it, and especially about, print sales versus ebook sales versus audiobook sales. What are you seeing with your own books, with your clients? Where do you think the industry is headed right now?
Okay, those are some great questions. My clients, by and large, give their books away, whether they're a financial advisor or a consultant giving away 1,000 copies, or a company that makes supplements that's going to put 400,000 copies in points of purchase like Whole Foods and CrossFit around the country next year. So they're not really looking to make money from their book. I always say to them, don't go into the book business. It's a declining business. Use the book to build your business. Don't worry about being a best-selling author. Be a best-earning author. So that's my takeaway on that. As far as where the industry is going, I really think the major publishers have lost their way. They've really lost their reason for being, and they've never figured out what to do about the internet. The major publishers thrived in an era when they had a hammerlock on the distribution and marketing of books. Today, because of Amazon, they've lost their hammerlock on distribution, and because of social media, they've lost their hammerlock on marketing. So they sort of don't really have a good reason to exist at this point. If you could sell a book to 100,000 people at $6 a copy, why would you give Simon & Schuster or Random House 85% of that money? For what? And they're only going to do a deal with you if they think that you already have a big enough pipeline to sell books through. But if you do have that pipeline, why give away 85% of the revenue? It makes no sense. So I think the major publishers are going to start publishing fewer books. They're going to have to work a little harder and a little smarter. I don't think they really know how to sell books at all, quite frankly. And the decline of bookstores is really tough in this country. Barnes & Noble's the last chain standing. They're declining. They're shutting 10% of their stores a year. It's harder and harder to find a place where you can buy a book. And I think we're depegging from the book. I think the book is no longer going to be the means by which people convey information. It's going to be shorter books or mini books, or we do a lot of 50 to 100 page books. Most of our books are 100 pages or shorter. And that's just where attention spans are. So I hate to say it as a book guy because I love books, but I don't think the future is bright for the traditional book. And it's unfortunate. I'd love to tell you otherwise, but unless the major publishers get their acts together, they're going to be completely squeezed out by the Amazons of the world, by CreateSpace, by we're radically more. My company, Business Ghost, is radically more profitable than any of the major publishing houses. The numbers are much, much smaller, of course. I mean, we're a tiny fraction of what they do, but we're a much more profitable, successful company today. We're not shrinking, we're expanding, and they haven't figured out the internet. And it's unfortunate to have had I've had a ringside seat of the collapse of publishing, but that's what it's all about. So that's where we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your viewpoint on that and your wisdom and all your experience. So I think it's really going to be super valuable for everybody listening right now. So, before you go, tell us more. We're going to find out more about you and the work that you're doing at Business Ghost.
Oh, sure. Well, very simply, I hope that I've lived up to my guideline of creating value for people in this interview. There goes my son, and I'm at home right now. So it's like this: if any of your viewers is thinking about doing a book, I would be very, very happy to speak with that person, and we'll see if we are right for each other, and we'll just talk about it, and then we'll see. We'll get you a proposal. We'll lay out options, Everything we do is work made for hire, which means that we do not keep a percentage of the back end of the book. Our name does not appear on the book. Our role is confidential. We are absolutely confidential in terms of the information people share with us. And as a result, people trust us to keep the secrets. We've never had any kind of leak in that regard. We've got a phenomenal team of writers and book designers. And so we can take any of your viewers from I want to have a book all the way through organizing, interviewing, editing, book design, publishing on Amazon and barnesandnoble.com. If they've got a manuscript, we can polish it and publish it for them. If they just want consulting, we can do that. We can do basically anything that has to do with a book, we can get it done for them. So if your folks are welcome to visit businessghost.com. The company, my email is michael@businessghost.com. And that's basically the story. I'll give you the 800 number if you'd like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you go ahead and share that now, and we'll post it in the show notes as well.
Sure, it's 800-637-6856. And that's it. So visit us at Business Ghost, and we'd be more than happy to help anybody who's interested in getting their book done quickly, elegantly, the right way.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michael. You shared just a wealth of wisdom with us today, and I really, really appreciate it.
Tom, it was absolutely my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye now.